Okay. Hi, how's everybody doing? That's good. So my name is Mario Meyerhuber, and I will talk about a project we did at the University of Linz, which is in Austria, Europe. And we did that one first with WPF and then with Surface. And what I'm going to talk about most is the integration we did for Surface. Let's first look at the agenda, what we're going to talk about today. First, I want to tell you about the project we did. It's called Digital Graffiti, which is a location-based service. And that's the base for all the projects we did with WPF and Surface. And next, we will talk about natural user interfaces, basically about the theory, because we did some work on that. We started the project in January, so it's pretty new. In the first 2 months, we spent most on thinking about how we can do that on the surface, because it was usually taken from WPF application, which was single touch and nothing natural involved. And therefore, we will talk about the surface design guidelines and how we did it, or how we want to do it, actually, because we're at the very beginning of the project. And we will talk about what different challenges we have with multi-touch, as it's totally different from the single touch or the WPF application, which is full screen. And then I will talk about the requirements we have, like what is important for our application and what do we need, like different modules, tag recognizer and stuff like that. And we'll also talk about why do we do something which is location-based service on a Surface device, which is definitely not something which is probably good for location-based services. It's kind of hard to carry that around. And yeah, in the end, I will talk a bit about the implications for the Digital Graffiti project, so what we think, how we want to do it. The first part where I show you about Digital Graffiti will take 15 to 20 minutes. It's basically that you get an idea about the project we are doing. And we're going to start with that right now. So the background of the project is there are 9 project members which are employed full-time. 6 people of them are research staff from the University of Linz. Then there is 1 researcher from Ars Electronica Future Lab. That's a center for digital lifestyle in Austria. And they're internationally known for their competitions on digital life and art. And they hold an annual event. Then there are 2 project members from Siemens. Probably everybody heard about Siemens. The project usually started in 2003. And the idea for the project came from a navigation system for cars. So actually, if you see what happened over the 7 years, a navigation system for cars, and now it's a location-based service, it's a big switch, and now we're going to do that for Surface. And the Smart Information Campus, the project we are doing, that starts this semester. So now we have a beta phase for the WPF application, which I'm going to show you later on, which is issued to students, and the target is to improve the life of the students. Yeah, so what is Digital Graffiti? Basically, it's a location-based service. Who knows what is a location-based service? Okay, some people do know it. Digital Graffiti is, like you can say, it's a location, person, and context-aware information and communication platform. The target group are students, teachers, people who work at the Johannes Kepler University, the University of Linz campus. And the target is that information can be consumed to the location and some conditions. Like conditions could be group membership, interest, the people are like interested in sports or other events, or the time, like graffitis can pop up at a certain time. What's the basic idea is you can publish a graffiti at a certain location. Like if you go somewhere, if you're sitting in this room, you could just go on your mobile and publish a graffiti, and people who go there can select your graffiti. And the graffitis, they are mapped to the real position, and you can still go and collect them if you meet the requirements. And so you can restrict the visibility of the graffiti to a certain number of people. Yeah, and the graffitis itself, they are categorized. So we have different categories for cafeterias, breakout rooms, and parking lots, and stuff like that. So that enables us a better structure for information. The idea behind that is, like, we also want to extend the services we have on campus. So we integrate different services like the services of the Mensa, so you can look up what's the next cafeteria and what you can get there for meal or for lunch or whatever. You can see what's the next public transportation, who's going to the city center or stuff like that. All of that is integrated into digital graffiti. And then we have something called the Friend Finder. A Friend Finder is now something like you have on Facebook, that you can just connect to your friends and see where they're at, and which enables you to find your friends easier. So you can convert it probably to Foursquare, who have already heard about that. Yeah, here is an overview how the system works. Like we have a provider, that's the JKU Linz is the University of Linz, and you can just go on the provider, and it's called a region server. And the region server is specific to every region. So if you want to have that system, for instance, at the MIX, you could just go and build up your own provider. And all of this is connected via a cloud, the internet. And the position tracking is done by GPS, GSM stations, or actually also wireless LAN, but I don't have it on this slide as well. So there are 3 different possibilities how you can track your position. Yeah, now I want to show you a short demo video which we did for that. If I find it. The sound doesn't work. Can we have sound?
Targeted messages in any private or public space. When a person approaches a location where a message has been left for them, the information will appear on their mobile device. Digital graffiti works worldwide and offers far more practical uses than current location-based services. This video illustrates digital graffiti's functionality and shows several typical applications of the new and innovative technology. Sophisticated addressing mechanisms enable you to tailor information to either a specific person or a chosen group. In this example, a ticket reservation system is provided in an office entrance area in the form of a digital graffito, only viewable by employees and business partners. Each graffito has options for deciding to whom, when, and where it will be delivered, with further options for choosing who is able to modify or delete the graffito if necessary. Via special templates, you can comfortably communicate with service providers. With just the push of a button, you can summon a taxi to your location for pickup. The system allows you to efficiently send orders to a desired recipient, with the possibility of relaying their current geographic position. Thus, you can prepare for the arrival of the taxi and ensure ample time to reach the meeting point. Graffito content can be updated at any time. This creates a new dimension in the area of business process organization. The Friend Finder module of Digital Graffiti assists with social networking. Both friends and business partners can network at the push of a button. They can share their current geographic position to create a new style of spontaneous group organization. A special feature of digital graffiti is its interoperability with other systems. Via the embedded airport system shown here, passengers are individually informed about nearby information relevant to them. Each passenger has their own personal virtual guide. Context sensitivity is also an essential feature of digital graffiti. The intuitive, simple method of finding objects, both inside and outside, makes life easier while saving time and effort. Virtual sensors with open functionality can be efficiently positioned at any geographic coordinate. Here, a sensor activates the automated booking process as the rental car passes the sensor position. Only rental car customers receive pertinent travel information in this context. Using digital graffiti, you can leave any message for yourself or others at any place and time. This creates unimagined possibilities in the area of infrastructure management for both the private and business fields. Digital graffiti creates a new mobile information and communication concept. Any user can leave information for both themselves and others, while automatically receiving only important or desired relevant information personally.
So that was a short demo video of how this works. Now we will move on to why we want to have that on, why digital graffiti is done at the University of Linz. First of all, it is thought to be a trend-setting service for both students, teachers, the administration, and the visitors of this university. It also supports the events we have at the university. It's easier for the students to find the lections just in case they want to go there. And it enables teachers to share their location and to give them downloads, on-demand downloads of the material they have at the university. It also supports events in, like if you are at MIX, to easily find the room where your next session is if you combine that one with a session planner. Then the next is that it's an efficient tool to build processes like social networking, conference management, and event management. Gives the university additional infrastructure for new research projects. So there are currently a lot of research projects related to digital graffiti. Like one is in business administration, which is business models for future communication studies. Then we have research projects in social studies, which is an impact of new technologies in communication. Next, we have also research in law, which looks at the legal aspects of virtual information retrieval. So this is also important to the university that we have more stuff to research on. Next, it is improved infrastructure in IT research, like we can research on ad hoc networking, people-to-people communication, and user interface design or natural user interface design. Yeah, we also have improved business corporations, where software businesses which are in this area work together with us in this project. And we have some corporations which are called communications of the future, and also some businesses now buy this project for like banks or airports. Yeah, now I want to show you the first application, which is now beta. Let me just bring it over to the other screen. This is basically the WPF application we built. As you can see here, in the center is the map. Then we have, on this side, we have the profile, like that's my name and where I'm at. Here it states Management Center, because I deactivated the location. I can activate like wireless positioning, but for this you need another infrastructure for the wireless network, so it wouldn't work that way. Then we have friends. I have 5 friends here. It's probably not as much as I have on Facebook. And then we have some graffitis. Graffitis are now real tagged objects so that we can work with. And here we have a filter for the graffitis, which are filtered in different categories. And as you can see here, what we're going to port to Surface is we want to have most of this stuff on the surface. So this is the single touch application, what we want to use. And it has some features like here, I can just see most of my friends are offline due to the fact that it's pretty late in Austria right now. But Gerd seems to be online. So I'll right-click and send him a message. Oh, it's on the other page. It's oh, Gert just wrote me something, and I tell him say hi to Las Vegas. So I can communicate with my friends. Probably he will answer. I don't know if he's still online right now, or if it's just whatever. Okay, probably let's go back to the client. It doesn't seem to respond. What you can see here is the map we can just drag around. And here we have like a Haltestelle Universität. That means like that's the tram stop for the university. It's a public transportation. And when I click on show, there is another window which is coming here, up here. And the content is being loaded right now. And here we should see when the next tram is going. Oh, in the meantime, I got a, yeah. Here is like, in Austria, it's 9 something in the evening. And here you can see when the next tram is going to the city center or stuff like that. So I can just look it up on this client when the next tram is going. In the meantime, I got a response from Gerd. He just told me, hi, Las Vegas. That's everything. And we can like add different other categories, like I activate the Mensas. So they should come over here. That's the place where you can have lunch. And I'll just click on that, and I can see what's on for lunch today. And here are the different menus we have. So that's everything which is in your proximity. Oh, and I just see I got a friend request, which was unplanned. Probably I'm gonna deny it. Yeah, and that's basically the graffiti client, and that's now that what we've been working on the last 2 years with the framework, and the server in the background is running on Windows Server 2003, and it's a C++ client as it's been developed for a lot of years. That one is written in WPF, and now let's look at why we want to have it on the surface, and why we want to have a natural user interface for that. So let me switch back to the slides. And now, why is this for us important to have that one on the surface? As you can imagine, location-based service needs kind of portability. The surface isn't that thing that you can just carry around like your cell phones. It's pretty hard to do. And even though that project is settled in Austria, not all the people look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. So it's kind of tricky, but still we found some useful things why we can use it. Like, first of all, it's very important for information terminals. The students might not have a laptop with them all the time. Of course, the students I'm studying with, which are in information technology, they do have a laptop with them. But there are law students and business students, and they don't just carry it all the time with them. So it's easier for them to find the lecture or to hook up with their friends if they are somewhere in the university and stuff like that. What we did for the Surface device, we used the tag recognizer to recognize objects, but I will talk about this later on. Yeah, then the next is administration. It's easy to add new graffitis because on the cell phone it might be a bit tricky because the display is smaller, and to change and update graffiti. Next, there is the possibility to plan the academic life, like to support freshmen when they join the university. We have a system called Guardian Angels, and they go and talk to new students, to freshmen, and tell them what places they can visit at the university. And this can be done with the Surface now, as the Surface gives us a different social experience, which I will talk about later as well. And then we have the possibility of a social meetup, where you can just sit together and talk while you're having a coffee or stuff like that. Okay, so now let's look at multi-touch design, which is natural user interfaces. I'm happy to have Josh over here, who did a great session this morning. Was it this morning, right? At natural user interfaces. And I hope I don't tell anything wrong now, so probably you can correct me. Okay, thanks. Yeah, so, but we identified some basic requirements which are important to our application. First of all, it's response. That's very important if you design a natural user interface, because even if you look at normal user interfaces, the graphical user interfaces, if they don't respond fast, the users might get angry. And especially for natural user interface, it's very important to have a quick response to, like, if you put a tag on the surface, or if you put your hand somewhere, there should be at least some kind of interaction that the user knows you can do something with the device, or you can do something with the objects which are there. So if you still have to load services in the background, like as it is for us, if you place a tag on the surface, we need to load all the services. We have to see who is the person who wants to log in and stuff like that. So it's easier if you do just some animation in the meantime and to show the user that there is actually something going on, and not that the user thinks like, it's broken, and takes the tag away after 1 or 2 seconds, because the server responses can be really long. Next there's the size of elements. You can't just go on a surface and design the elements the way you would do it on your normal user interface, as the surface needs the input with the fingers and stuff like that. So if the size of the elements are too small, the finger is not as precise as the mouse pointer. So you should keep that one in mind. And there's this recommendation from, I don't know, it was a paper on natural user interfaces, that elements should be around 40 times 40 pixels. The thing is, like, if you have the surface got a different dots per inch resolution, and if you make it 40.40, it might be bigger as expected. So you should already look at the dots per inch resolution your device is capable of. Next, it's important to have feedback to users, so to tell them that you can actually do something with the device. Because as you can imagine, there is nothing like a mouse, so you don't have a mouse hoover effect if you can click a button or if you can do some action with an object. Yeah, and the next, what is important is you should try to reduce text input, because you have an on-screen keyboard, which is probably harder to type than your normal keyboard you are used to. And with the reduced text input, it doesn't mean that you simply have to get rid of the text input. You can still have text input, like for login purposes or for other purposes, like if you're using a chat, the one I just showed you before. You still need a keyboard because probably have a good speech recognition engine that might work, but I doubt that it's not working for everybody. Yeah, next there are some criteria for gestures. First of all is context. The users should know what kind of gestures or manipulations can be used. Probably you can show that to the users by doing a quick animation if they want to see what's possible. Then you can, there's simplicity, because if you have your gestures made that complex, or your manipulations that you always need strong muscles involved or stuff like that, your users might get tired. Probably it's a good idea to build something like that for a fitness center, but that's not the usual case you want to have. Next, you should use some metaphors. The gestures should be, or the manipulation should kind of be affiliated with the operation you want to execute, so that it's not so, like if you cross something out and it creates a new object, that might not be the right thing. Next, you should have clear gestures, like different gestures or manipulations. Users tend towards doing things in a different way. Like someone throws a circle, the other user might draw something that looks like an egg, but it's still supposed to be a circle. I know myself, I would rather do an egg, and so the surface device should still be possible. It should still be possible to recognize this one as the thing you want to have. So it should be kind of tolerant to different users and different input. Yeah. Next, it's important to know that gestures will be repeated pretty often. So if you gestures and manipulations, and if they are hard to do, or if you have to use, as said before, a lot of force to do them, users will definitely get tired. So you should try to make things easier. Yeah, what's also important to remember is you should try to support gestures with sound or video. So if you click, or if you press your button on an object, you should kind of like make a shadow to have like an revealed effect if you can drag it around. or you should make something like a sound that the user immediately recognizes there's something possible with that he can do. Yeah, then there are the interaction guidelines. The next slides now focus on what is from the Surface user experience guidelines, like what you should try to remember with the Surface. Like the virtual objects you do, they should act kind of real. So you should have some smooth animations. You should use mass acceleration, gravity, and stuff like that. That's possible with the inertia processor, which comes with the Surface. So you can easily go and add some real behavior, like if you drop something at the border, you can make it bounce back. What's also important is you should use objects, tagged and untagged objects. And there should always be an immediate response to that object. Like if you put an object on a Surface table that doesn't have any function, you should still make it possible that the user can get some feedback, or that the user recognizes there is actually something going on. And you should try to use tagged objects. I don't know who has never heard about the tagged objects in Surface? Or like the other question, who has heard about the tagged object? Okay, there must be at least some users that didn't. Yeah, well, you can just place a byte tag on the Surface device. And with that byte tag, you can do some action, like you can affiliate that with data in your database. It comes with zeros and values if you have a tag, and so you can just go and relate that to data or whatever you want to do with that. And this probably is interesting for a login. Like if you want to do a login for our WPF application, you need the username and the password. You can do that with the tag, but very important, you shouldn't use the tag for the password because it accesses personal data. And if you access personal data, you should at least ask for a PIN or a password, because imagine just some evil friend of you and who steals your tag and goes and adds some stupid graffitis, probably would end up in a disaster. Yeah, then you should enable some single and multi-user experience. I will talk about this later on with social aspects of the Surface device. And you should have a different level of task coupling. Like on the Surface device, more users can interact with the device and with the users which are on there, and you should try to make this task coupling that users can work together. Like there are different levels of task coupling. It's high, light, and uncoupled tasks. Like for high tasks, users have to interact with each other to finish a task. Yeah, you should also consider the space usage for multiple users, as there'll probably be 4 or more people working on the device, and probably the space is getting less if more people are working on that. So there should be some consideration for that, and you should provide a 360-degree user interface. So as you know, the Surface device, you can access it from all the degrees from all around the Surface device, unless it's at a position where you can't do that. But normally you can access the Surface device from everywhere. So you should also make the user interface that way that you can enable that. Yeah, then you should build some improved experiences, which is described as super realistic applications. And they should be kind of familiar with real-world behavior. And as mentioned before, every touch should immediately get a response. And for the improved experiences, as mentioned before as well, you can use the inertia processor. Then you should create a sense of life. You should always have some kind of animations that the user knows there is something going on and the application isn't frozen. And but this should be a way that you don't distract the user. It should be in a easy way. You should enable playful, pleasurable, and explorative touches so that the user can play with the device. It's important not to just finish tasks, but the user can also have fun with the device. And then there should be a focused experience, which means that you shouldn't overload the user on choices. So reduce the number of choices the user can do, and don't make too much features in your device. So it should be focused on what it's actually supposed to do. Yeah, then the applications, they should be intelligent but not presumptuous. Like users should stay in control of what they're doing, but you should also have the possibility to undo operations or to take the application back in a consistent state if the user did some really bad errors. Okay, then the next part is you should try to integrate learning with doing. This means like you should show the user what the application is capable of, and you should integrate different level of depth so that you can show the user additional features if the application or your application is that the user is already more experienced with the application, so you could add features and do more in it. Therefore, there should be a full path from novice to expert, what you could include. Next, there is progressive disclosure. You should let users navigate through the environment, and you should also provide on-demand deeper views of an object. Next, you could include some gratification and sense of success so that the user knows the user is now did something good and recognize that. And that the users keep on working with the device and that they just feel good with working with the device. Then you should appeal to multiple senses, like you should add visual, sound, motion, and physical interaction to your user interface. And you should try to make a good visual design. That's what I'm not so good in because I'm a developer, and who is a developer himself probably knows how someone works with those editors for user interfaces. But still, you should try to do that, or at least if you have someone who's capable of that. Yeah, and you should also minimize the user interface and focus on what the application is all about. And this leads to that you should make the content the interface so that the users don't think they are doing something totally different for what they actually came for, and don't use other interface elements that simply doesn't belong to the UI. And this would be like if you use a button to zoom in, this probably won't work. So you should use some touch. Yeah, then there was a very interesting paper on social aspects of such multi-touch tables. The first important thing is that it actually brings some social aspects with you. And it's not just multi-touch, but it's about multi-users, so that users can work together. And you should kind of enable that on a Surface device so that they interact with each other. This brings some different tasks like group behavior. It's very different if you're working on a Surface table other than a vertical display. Like on a vertical display, there might be one user who is sitting in front of the keyboard and the mouse, or if it's a multi-touch, can still touch that one, and the other users, they stand right behind the person, unless it's a very big display, but I'm talking about just the normal displays. For example, if you plan your holidays with your friends, you would go there and type the address of a travel agency and try to plan that one. If you have a vertical display, users can interact with each other, so they can tell like, oh, let's add all-inclusive, or let's add breakfast, or let's look at the pictures from that place, and you can just have these pictures on your Surface, and the people can look themselves into the eyes, so it's a different experience as you would have with vertical displays. Yeah. Then you have shared usage. People could just go and hijack your pictures. Hijack not in a bad way, because they can't really do that. But they could take away the stuff that actually belongs to you, like your friends or your graffiti if you're related to digital graffiti. So they could go and take away your friends and don't let them chat with you if they track them to their user space on the Surface device. Therefore, you need to focus on what is important for shared usage for the users. Next, there are some human tactile and perceptual implications. It's tough to spell. This is like basically problems you have with the imprecision of your fingers, occlusion by the hand you're operating with, and multiple input toys. most of that is actually handled by the Surface SDK. So that's not so important, but still you should focus on that. Like if you have buttons or radio buttons or whatever in your application and they're pretty small, the users might not find that fun to touch them. Yeah, then there was a paper which was by the University of Washington together with Microsoft Research, which was a pretty interesting paper because they looked at additional gestures and manipulations for their application. And what they found out is that it's actually a Windows world. This means like users go and try to close objects by clicking on the upper right corner, which is the close button in Windows. And so users, the paper, just to tell about the background, the people who they did that together with were no designers or software developers, so they were just normal users. And so they just tried to close that stuff with clicking on the X. So you should consider using probably something like to close that up there if it's interesting for your application. What was also interesting, they were looking for a Windows button on the corner of the application to have something like a start menu. This was one of the things they found out in the beginning. What was also interesting is that most of the gestures and manipulations were done with one hand and not with two. And there were actually 27 commands, which led to 1,080 gestures. And the target of this was like to find out how they do these gestures or manipulations. Out of 27 gestures or manipulations, 25 were done with one hand. So there is significance that one-hand gestures are more popular. What was done with two hands was stuff like zooming and maximizing. So if you look at the Surface, you can zoom elements by two hands. So it already includes that one. But if you make your own gestures, you should first look at will the user rather do it with one hand or with two hands, because this leads to a better experience for the user if you keep that in mind. What was also interesting was that some users tried to delete an object by dragging it just away from the table. So like you have a real device, a real object, and you would just drop it away from the table. Users try to move objects away from the table by deleting or closing it. So most applications I saw with the Surface, if you drag something off the table, it bounces back with some inertia. You could probably integrate something that it's getting closed. Have to decide that for your own application. There are also other close operations people did, like they dragged it back where it came from. Like if you have an object where multiple objects are stacked, like pictures or so, they just try to drag it back in order to close it or just to shrink it to a minimum. Yeah, here are some of the additional gestures which were described in this paper. I guess you probably are familiar with most of those, like that you can hold and tap an object or put a lasso around the object to select some objects or to cut something. There's actually an API. It was, I think, the Windows tablet API where all these gestures are included in. If anyone is interested in that, I can send you the link for the paper where it's described in detail, about 10 pages. And here is like how to undo operations, like you can scratch it out, or you can pull something apart with your fingers. And here are also some more, like that's the last slide with the additional gestures, like you can pull objects apart with your hands, or you can pinch objects to shrink or enlarge them. Some gestures are like to drag something at the bottom of the surface. That's how you could minimize them. So that were the gestures which were looked at. Here is the agreement. This is the final thing they did on the study. Like the higher the agreement, the more users could identify with that custom gesture. Like if you look at move a little, everybody did it with one hand. And like what was interesting for two hands was maximize and enlarge. Here is, you can see it's definitely better to do it with two hands. Things like reject, next cut, those gestures weren't that popular because they are tending to go towards the bottom. So you should be careful with those kind of gestures. Yeah. Then there's an interesting thing we try to do. We wanted to integrate the design into the development process. By design, I mean interaction design, not the design of our application. And there's actually a consideration how you can do that. It's written in a book on user interface, user interaction design, how you should integrate that one into the development process. First, you should discover what are the user needs. In our case, that was like, do they need graffitis, how they want to interact with the graffitis or with the friends or with the map. Next, you should define the scope, like you should find the functional requirements or the content requirements. Next, there is the skeleton. The skeleton is now the interaction design and the information architecture. That's the phase we are at the moment. And next comes the structure. You should go and design your user interfaces, and you should go and design your information. And the last one is surface. That doesn't relate to the surface device. It's just a consideration. And here you should finalize the look and feel. You should try to have a common look and feel. So what this actually means is like you have some additional things with a bad design process. If you have a bad design process, the design or the interaction might not be the same over the application. It might vary from application to from parts of the application. And often the design doesn't or interaction doesn't meet the customer's needs. And the prototyping you do with that phases can prevent some errors. Okay, now let's look at the surface application, or at least the prototype we have, because we are still at the very beginning of that application process. First, we thought about what should we integrate. Like first, it is important that the map is at a central position. It should always be there. Like if you're familiar with the Surface device, you know there's this virtual Earth application. We wanted to have something like the map as a central position. And I think it was Infostrat who did an open source project on code blocks with the map. We are still looking at it because the map is the last thing we want to do because it's very big. We just first focus on other stuff. But that's one you can use with the Surface device as it supports multi-touch. Yeah, so the map should be in the background, and it should be kind of like an overview element where you can place your graffitis or your users. Then what's very important, more users should be able to work on the device. Like that, it doesn't mean that more users could use your friends, but that more users could interact with their friends, and that if you are talking to someone who is friend with person X and you know person X, but it's not on your friends, you can just go and drag it onto your object and then you become friends. So you could call it third-party friending or so. Yeah, the graffiti and friends should be connected, so they should be in one object, and you can go and drag them at the Surface device. And there should be some interaction, like with the friends I just mentioned before. First, we had a really small approach, like how we want to have the friends and the users. There should come some animation now. Okay, doesn't seem to work. Oh, it's with a click, where you can drag out your friends. And if you drag out your friends, you should start a chat with them. And if you drag out the graffitis, you should get some background information, like the history of the university or where the next tram stop is at. And this led to some problems, like we found some things that were not okay. First is it was either only one or two users that could go for the application. For one user, it would have been an anonymous user, but there was a problem with the framework because the framework doesn't support an anonymous user we were using for that, like the server model. So you could have two users that log in. But this would mean like that our application only supports two people, but we wanted to have n number of people. So yeah, then the next was how could you distinguish between different users? There was no possibility to do that. And it wasn't personal anymore if you would have an anonymous user, and we still wanted to have it very personal and for interaction stuff. Yeah, next, it wasn't a 360-degree interface because you could only exit it from 2 sides and not from the other 2, from the smaller sides. So we thought that's not good looking enough. So what we integrated then is the tag control. You place a tag control at a random place at the surface, and around your tag control there will be your graffiti and your friends. And you can place n numbers of tag control. Like you could just go and place 10 tag controls at a time, if you have enough space for that, because the physical space of the surface is also limited, kinda. Then it was important to us to distinguish between users. Like if the tag control would always look the same, people might find it hard to find their tag again if the physical tag looks different. So what we decided to do is we built different color schemas. And like we have 16 color schemes for that, and it could be blue or green, and also your friends and your graffiti, they will be colored in this color scheme your tag is. So that gives you the possibility to distinguish between users. Yeah, and then we implemented different ways to close the application. We didn't do the one to drag it off the screen. We might do it as well, but we are still not sure about that. But basically how you can close friends or graffiti is just to drag it back where it came from. And the next thing is to minimize it, so to shrink it to a minimum. What we didn't do are custom gestures and manipulations, the one I talked before about, because the problem is we have a map, and if you would go and draw a circle, you would probably just drag around the map all the time. So that was a bit difficult for us to think about how we can actually do this in a way that the user can interact with each other. Probably you just have to make the map wait, but this would result up in something like, it doesn't work somehow. So it was something we didn't find an interesting solution to work around this problem. Okay, that are like the colors they are looking like. I could try to bring up the application, but the problem is I don't have a Surface device with me, because they kind of stopped me at the customs when I tried to bring it to the States. I thought it's too expensive or whatever. So I can only show it to you in a virtualized environment, as this one is 64 bits and I don't want to crack the Surface application or whatever. So I'll try to show that here. The problem is I can only use VirtualBox, as Windows Virtual PC doesn't work on Sony laptops because they restricted hardware acceleration. Okay. Let's see if I can connect. Oh, I can't connect because I'm still connected with the other client. Just found out. I have to. Oh, okay, here it's actually the application, and it's not working that fast here in the virtual environment. But here you can like select the categories I just showed you before, where you can like activate different places. Here is like a restaurant, the Louis, and if you click on the restaurant, you get another tag. And by this bubble, you can get different additional information, like background information on that device, not on that device, on that object. You also have your friends in there. Like if we click on Gerd, we get him here. Of course, you could enlarge those objects now as they're just in a scatter view, but due to the fact that I can only use single touch with my virtual environment, I cannot enlarge them, but you have to trust me, it does work. And if you click on that bubble, this bubble will still change, and it will have an animation so that users know they can do something with the icon in the bottom. You could start a chat with Gerd and tell him like, "Hi, I am in Vegas." But it's still a very early stage, and probably a lot of that will still change, as we're just working on that application for the last 2 weeks or so. So that's basically the first prototype. Okay, so let me switch back to my slides. It's the last slide now. Yeah, here are some of the gestures we can do. Like if you have a second tag on it, you can drag your friend over to the other tag, and they will become friends as well. You could scale and shrink applications. Okay, so what's next for the application? As I told you before, we are at the very beginning. We just have some concepts, how we want to do it. And most of the concepts, they come from research studies. And so we're figuring out how we're going to do that. We will add more gestures and manipulations, and the map will be integrated in summer. And we want to finish the Surface application in the third quarter of 2010. Okay, so that's the session. Thanks for joining the session. And now we have still some time for discussion. So I'm waiting for your questions. Yeah.
So are you planning to have it multi-language? And if so, do you have any kind of content considerations on that? Different languages, or it's left to right, right to left?
Oh, so the question is if we want to have different languages. The first thing is that we have a lot of interest from the Saudi Arabian area. Like in summer, there was a sheikh in Linz just to look at the WPF application. So this is something we definitely have to look at, because we definitely going to need different languages. Right now, it's only in English. And as you could see, the information is in German. The information is the content system in the background. That's in German, but the application itself is in English. But we're definitely going to add different languages because it's important to our application. Other questions? Yeah. The demo I have right here, it's only one user because it takes, at the moment, the network traffic is not good enough to have two users. But you could go and add another tag control, and you could have more users. So this is still integrated, that you can have more users. I could probably do that on the Surface device if I would have it with me, but this device, the virtual environment, might break the application. I don't want it to crash. But
drag out a friend, for example, like you showed there.
Yeah.
Drag it into another user's box.
Exactly, yeah. That's already working, but too difficult right now. But yeah, of course, you can place n numbers of tags, because the connection tag is written as the architecture is made that way that you can simply add more. Doesn't matter how much you want to add. It's just up to your bandwidth or your connection. So, but normally it should handle that, because the serialization is not done in XML or JSON or any format that was too slow for us. We did everything in binary, because we have to use mobile devices, and they need performance. Okay. Other questions or suggestions or? But you can also talk with me later on when you leave when it's over. Okay, so then I want to say thanks for attending my session, and have a nice day in Vegas. Thanks.